And what I was blown away by was the human capacity to brilliantly solve the wrong problems. And I'm on a quest to change that. So I teach about how to solve the impossible. And my whole brand is all about making people feel limitless. So, what can I do to make you limitless, such that you feel unshackled, unleashed, unburdened? My story is that I'm a marketer and strategist by profession. I did that for about 25 years. And what I was blown away by was the human capacity to brilliantly solve the wrong problems. And I'm on a quest to change that. So I teach about how to solve the impossible. And my whole brand is all about making people feel limitless. So, what can I do to make you limitless, such that you feel unshackled, unleashed, unburdened? Um, and this is not sort of a coin speech or anything, by the way. I'm just
Hmm.
telling you what's coming to my head and in the order that it happened. Um,
Sure.
but I was doing this. I had the opportunity to participate in an anthology, which went on to become a Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller. And then I had the opportunity to speak. So I've spoken internationally and certainly at, great academic institutions like Harvard and Stanford and Cambridge and Oxford. And I was working on about 5 books at the time. And during that, so this is all in the last couple of years, by the way.
So you're an underachiever, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
totally. And
yeah.
and at the same time, I was working on 5 books.
Wow.
So yeah, and but I felt a darkness coming at me for about 6 months before I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So it's having that
Mhm.
diagnosis was almost, oh, that's what it was. Okay, now I get it. That kind of thing. It was.
So talk about that then. So what kind of like what were the flags? What was the 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 signs that said, "Hey, something's different. Something's changing in my world of reality," that brought to your attention?
It's just a darkness that I felt. I feel energies. And
Okay.
I felt a darkness and I felt it for a good 6 months. So I suspect that that's when the disease was uh, growing.
Mm.
And it was only caught because of a mammogram, a routine mammogram.
Hmm.
And but the story gets better. I had my surgery, I had a lumpectomy, and I kept moving like nothing had really changed because it's just another project that I have to get through, one of those. And I still traveled internationally, still did my speaking thing, still working on my books. And then I went through my pathology tests, and there was a time where I had to decide whether I was going to do chemo or not because I had conflicting reports. And so
Mm.
after checking with, like, I don't know, everybody I knew and was connected to, and they were connected to in the medical community in that specialty, I decided to go ahead with chemo. And when I went through chemo, I, of course, lost all my hair, which is no surprising. I was losing a lot of weight. I was losing weight at one point to the tune of 10 pounds a week, and which is really dangerous weight loss. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then I started to lose my ability to breathe. And I'm not a complainer about anything, so I just kind of assumed that it was, this is just part of chemo. But what happened was I ended up getting an infection in one of my teeth because it was cracked, and you can't have an infection and have chemo and cancer. You have to get to the ER. So we went to the ER, and that's probably what saved my life. Is my tooth infection, and
Wow.
we don't realize how much our dental status is
No,
systemic.
we don't. People do not
Yeah.
understand this at all.
Yeah, they don't understand it at all. So it's you have anything dental that's an issue, it has a systemic effect. And
Hmm.
so what happened was we got to the hospital, we got to the ER. 7 hours later, I was seen by someone. By the way, I was prioritized, and it still took 7 hours. And the
Wow.
head of the department saw me, and as soon as he did, I thought, all I need is, some antibiotics and some oxygen, and then I'll be good to go. So I thought it was going to be some pills, a bit of oxygen, and I was going to be out of there. Boy, was I wrong. And
You had things to do. What are you talking
yeah,
about? It's like
yeah, yeah. I know. I was just like, yeah, okay, whatever. This is just one more step. But we what happened was as soon as I said as soon as I saw the head of the department, things, started to happen like lightning. I always say that because what happened is you had the beds coming out, well, the bed coming out, the sheets being laid, I was being stripped, I was put a gown on me, they redid my vitals, and I was like, this is really aggressive for what I was thinking.
This isn't a pill.
Yeah. Then I started, then they started the IVs for fluids and antibiotics, and I was like, okay, this is a little extreme. And then they then they got me on the bed, and they tried to put an oxygen mask on me. And because I was having trouble breathing and I felt the tightness around my nose and mouth,
Got it. Yeah.
I freaked out and
Yeah.
I threw it off. And after that, I don't remember anything. And so what happened was, I was admitted, and it took them a couple of days before they were confident that the infection in my tooth was settled. And but I kept getting worse. And during this time, I'm like texting people, I'm giving consents like they're going out of style. I'm like, telling people what I feel like eating, and I wasn't eating it. Like I didn't I had I had tons of visitors, no clue what was going on. I don't remember any of it. I don't remember texting people anything. Anyway, so I kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then I went into a coma. And I was in a coma for 2 weeks. And when I say coma, I was intubated. I was on a ventilator. My hands were tied to the railings. My feet were bandaged. My eyes were
Wow.
taped shut. I was paralyzed, and I had about 10 IVs from my neck all the way down to my
Wow.
wrist. Yeah, yeah. It was really severe.
Mhm.
And the thing with when you're in the ICU, which is where I was, and they have a backup to a backup to a backup for everything because you can't not have access to your vessels. So, so I was in a coma for 2 weeks, and I also had contracted something called ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome. So when you look at a scan, um, the lungs look black because they're clear, they're filled with air. But in my case, they were a whiteout. So, which means that there's obstructions.
Jeez.
And so that's why I was on a ventilator. And the top
Mhm.
ventilator in the world was on my ICU team. I had a phenomenal ICU team, but not just because they were such experts, but because they exercised what I call three main principles. The first was they were all solving for the outcome, not the problem. The problem was originally my infection, right? But the outcome was that they had to make me better.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
that's what they were all going for. Like, how do we get
Mhm.
this patient to live? And second thing that I talk about and that they really embraced was this notion of curiosity. How are we going to get around this? And like, digging in all different ways as to how they're going to figure this out because they didn't have an answer. And that head ventilator guy, he actually told my husband, can I level with you? And it's like, of course you can. And it turns out that a lot of times in respiratory cases, they don't know what it is, but they know how to control it. So all they were really looking for was control at that stage. So how do we control it was the statement, that they use in their curiosity venture. And then the third thing that I talk about is intellectual humility. And I had some pretty phenomenal people on my team, but they weren't all doctors. Some of them were researchers, some of them were technicians, like different disciplines. I also had a global team. So it wasn't just, you know, one one kind of, point of view. It was
Mhm.
multiple points of view. And what was
Mhm.
really amazing is that the guy from Singapore actually said, we had a similar case like this, and we looked at it this way, and we tried these techniques, and it seemed to work. And my doctor, who was the lead doctor on my team, she said, "Tell me more." Totally not, nothing conceited, nothing. And this is my parents are both surgeons and specialties, so
Hmm.
I know what it's like to
Okay.
be around doctors who are very
Right.
particular. Um,
Mhm.
So for a doctor to, you hear doctors to say that, and it's amazing. I also have to tell you that my husband was amazing because he was with me the entire time. He was part of the ICU team. I had a team of about 10 people that would see me every morning and, look at about 250 data points. And, it was
Wow.
like an ongoing thing. And people were asking him after 2 weeks, they're like, "Are you a doctor? Are you on this team?" And he's a finance guy, like no science at all. So it was pretty wild to see that transformation in him or hear about it. And everything that
Hmm.
I'm telling you is what he's told me because I
Hmm.
don't know, right? And then I was in the hospital for 2 months. And 3 days after I got out of the hospital, I did my TEDx talk. And that was really tough, just because I had just gotten off of oxygen
Hmm.
long
Hmm.
ago. And so it was very much like I thought I was going to tip over a couple of times. And but there were a lot of things that came to the forefront for me. So, there were things like um first of all, I forgot to tell you that I had the most amazing coma. Like I
I was going to ask. I was going to say. So what was?
Yeah.
So you
Like,
got your husband's account when you
yeah.
were in those 2 weeks.
So,
What was
oh
that
my
experience for
God, I
you?
had the best time ever. And
She's
best
and
time
partying
ever.
up. She's hanging out with Buddha. She's.
Yeah.
yeah, I had the best time because I was flying around like Superman through different galaxies and different realms. I can still
Hi,
feel the wind
girl.
on my face. And I was ending up in places like, what the heck? Like, how did that happen? Or
Hmm.
but I was a fly on the wall everywhere. I wasn't actually integrally involved in the scenes that I was seeing. So
Hmm.
I was an observer. And
Hmm.
Hmm.
um and it was phenomenal. I mean, just some of the stuff that I saw, what I always say is I saw what was humanly possible, but just not done yet.
Hmm.
And
That's
so,
cool.
yeah, it was really cool. And I thought I was thinking big. I had no idea what big was. You know, it was a phenomenal experience.
Love it. So,
That's awesome.
And it's
so
totally awesome.
what is, can you describe that a little bit more detailed as far as you're a big thinker? What is thinking bigger? What does that mean?
I think it's not it's feeling limitless
Hmm.
is what my goal is with people always.
Okay. Right.
It's feeling like there is nothing you can't do. It is feeling like we haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg. It what you see is just these amazing ideas coming together. And I'll give you an example. Like one of the things that I saw, and I don't know why I saw this, but this is what I saw. I saw a really, really beautiful dinner party, and it there was a lot of wine. It was very like dark in terms of the lighting, and very shishi, I would say. And the conversations were only amongst two people at a time. They never strayed beyond that.
Hmm.
And I have my theory on that, which I'll tell you. But there's all these amazing chefs, but the chefs are in the middle, and the guests are all on the outside, talking and
Okay.
tasting, drinking. But it's in the crater on the top of a mountain. Like it's just it's taking two ideas and having them collide. It's like you know being in a volcano and having a dinner party. Like just it's just like it's crazy. And it's just stuff like that I saw.
That's a
And
hard ticket to sell, by the way.
yeah, yeah.
It's
I have to be honest
not
with
a
you.
lot of reservations for that
Yeah, no,
restaurant.
no, no, no. But there were a lot of people there. Like it wasn't like there weren't people there. So I have to tell you guys, this is funny, but I read um thought leadership and billionaire mafia romance. Those are my two categories. So I was thinking, man, these billionaire mafia people could definitely do something like this. So it's like, oh, and I'm speaking in Iceland coming up. So, the volcano idea came from there. I don't know. It was like all these like, things sort of colliding and creating this really cool concept. But that happens a lot in life, right?
Mm.
It's just you have to think big enough to see what is possible. Honestly, I feel like I need to have a conversation with Richard Branson. That's how I feel.
Mm.
There you go.
So,
Up on the island.
yeah. But these really unique experiences, or this idea that, hey, somebody's having a bad day, so you're going to leave them a little gift on their doorstep, and there's going to be a card and say, hey, we're going to take you out for dinner, but dinner happens to be in Paris, you know.
Hmm.
Um, those are small things. There were all these innovative
Nice.
ideas that that came to the surface, like how people create these unusual opportunities, and like there was like a big innovation conference, but it was only like for four people, and the stuff that they created was like there was a football player who created like a thing out of like coconut shells like and it was a football and it had a mask on it, and like it was just there it just it we just don't let our minds go big enough, you know, because as we get older, we get dumber, right? We're not thinking about things like a child anymore and thinking about um, the wonder that can happen. So I had the best time. Nobody else did except me, obviously, because it was very, very stressful for my whole family and obviously for my medical team. Um, but I came out of that and I did my TEDx talk. And
Mhm.
so thinking big was one thing. Another thing was putting myself first because I never did that in my entire life. I'm a
Mhm.
giver and I would give and give and give and to the point where it was
Yeah.
hurting me. And then guess what? I would give more
Yeah.
again.
Mhm.
So I
Sure.
was really not very good at self care and self management.
Mm.
Um, Better now, not great, but getting better, paying more attention to it. So putting myself first and also realizing that all we have is now, so do it now. And then another thing that, I mean, I'm just giving you the brief versions of everything, but
Sure.
limited versions. But the other thing that really came to mind was this incident that happened with two of my kids, the two older kids. And he was 6, she was 7, and he was having behavioral issues. He wouldn't want to go to school, no surprise, boys, like they get it in their head and, they can't get it out until they resolve it the way they want to resolve it. I'm sure you've been like that. So but he was pretty stubborn and he was having a really hard time. And so we talked to his teacher and she said, "Yeah, that makes sense because he's testing at a high school level for math and a university level for reading comprehension."
Wow.
And we just kind of said, "What?" You know, because our daughter's exactly the same. So we just never knew to even think differently about them, right?
Hmm.
Right.
So we ended up getting them both tested, and um, the the psychologist, who's a really well-known psychologist, um, and he's been doing this, he's been working with kids for 30 years. He says he comes back after the testing, and 2 weeks later, and he says, "I can count on one hand kids as bright as yours." And we were
Hmm.
just blown away by that. I actually had to listen to him say it 3 times before I internalized it because I couldn't believe it. And then he says, "What are you gonna do for your son?" It's like, because that's the primary reason we had gone this route.
Hmm.
This is amazing. Now we have the paperwork to say, let's get him into a specialized program because, this proves that he needs something more. And you need the paperwork before the board will talk to you about it. So now we have the paperwork.
Hmm.
And then he said, "What are you going to do for your daughter?" And I said, "Well, you know what? She figures things out. She's super happy. She's walking happiness. She creates happiness. She has great friends. She's doing really well in school. Why try to fix something that ain't broke?"
Hmm.
And then he turns around and he says to us, "That's exactly why you need to push for her, because this is what happens to women and girls all the time."
Hmm.
And that, which had been and we would always push for her anyway, but that has been sort of in the back of my mind and on the back burner, and it came surging back to the front after my coma. And I had always wanted to do something for women, so I actually said, "I'm going to do this now." And I've started a group. It's all about lifting women, both the business or whatever endeavor she's in. Could be philanthropy, it could be art, whatever it is. but also lifting the woman behind the business. And there's a really unique way we do that. But I had interviewed about 200 women globally to understand what it is that what women really want. And there were three things, three main things. The first thing was they wanted brutal honesty and brutal kindness at the same time. So tell me what I need to
Mhm.
tell me what, I need to do to grow, but do it because you care and you want to see me progress and
Yeah, yeah.
break
Hmm.
through.
Right.
Second thing that they wanted was visibility, and not so much in terms of having a book and being on podcasts and, speaking in audiences and all that kind of stuff. It was more about when she walks into a room, she stands in her own light with self-respect, she says her piece, and then people turn around and say what she said,
Hmm.
So the group is called What She Said.
Nice.
Nice.
And the third thing that they wanted was um a really airtight sisterhood where we have each other's backs, a community
Hmm.
where we call it the posse. We're a posse of bad bitches doing great things. And so we whatever happens in the posse stays in the posse.
Hmm.
It's really tight
Sure.
sisterhood,
Right.
really
Very
tight,
cool.
airtight community. But the problem is that I'm not interested in doing another networking a social group. I'm just not. That's not where my heart lies.
Sure.
And my heart doesn't lie. I'm not a transactional person. I'm a relationships person. So so for me, I want to build everything I build. I want to base it on relationships. And so what happened was I decided to take a different approach in terms of how we do this. And in one of the brainstorming sessions that we had, um, I decided that what we're going to do is for every woman that joins, we're going to create a little mini board of directors for her. And that board is responsible for growing her business.
Interesting.
So
Nice.
there's so I think a lot about things, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not
Hmm.
good. In this case, it's good. But the reason that's important is because it alleviates a lot of the things that women often feel. So this incredible loneliness, where do you go for help, creativity, all the resources that, you might,
Yeah.
and when you're in the corporate world, for example, everybody's telling you what to do. Even if you're a senior, it's like, okay, we need to grow the business by this much, and here's why. Or, and there's, it goes up and down in terms of the whys. But you get out into the world of, doing things on your own or entrepreneurship or philanthropy, and nobody's telling you what to do anymore. So you kind of feel like, where do I go? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I have a really big concern with how we do accountability in the working world. And so when let's say the three of us are in an accountability group and we commit to the 7 million things that we're going to do next week, all in 1 week.
Yeah.
And we don't do them, and we do three, right? So I do one thing, you do two things, Ross, sorry, Gary, that's you. And then Ross, you do, you know, a few other things, but you don't do it all. But guess what? There's no consequence,
Yeah.
right? So what happens
Mhm.
is you just push it off to the next week. And so I prioritized, and then I did it this way. So, well, why didn't you prioritize first in the first place? Like, don't commit to so many things to yourself. But, we want to do it all, right? And sometimes
Hmm.
we don't even know how to prioritize.
Hmm.
So the really cool thing about this group, these we call them squads, is that people commit to doing things for you based on what you need to drive your business. What do you need that is going to move the needle that if you didn't have it, you couldn't progress? So pick the one
Hmm.
thing. And then these women are going to offer their help and their expertise and their connections. They're doing it to
Interesting.
grow your business. So guilt is a beautiful thing if used strategically. So nobody is going to, you're not going to commit to doing anything for this person that you can't do, first of all. So it narrows the scope of the project or the steps. So you're not committing to 5 million things, you're committing to one thing for this person. So that person has to narrow it down, right? So
Hmm.
Mhm.
you're being very picky and you're prioritizing well. The other thing that it does is this is a situation where people have to grow. People are committing to you. They're accountable to you for doing stuff for you, not doing stuff for themselves. So if you really play the guilt game, nobody's going to commit to something that they can't do, and nobody's going to not deliver on it.
And I
Yeah.
think it also resonates with also the female psyche or conditioned psyche of take care of others before you take care of you. So it aligns with
Yeah,
that
yeah, you're
so
right. You're
perfectly.
right.
Yeah.
And what happens is we do that for each other. So it's like a
Hmm.
surround sound approach.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're committing to things like, oh, I can't commit to things for five other people, or yeah, you can because you're only doing one thing for them, and
Hmm.
you're going to do something that you're already good at,
Yeah.
or that you can make a connection, or that you can show them a template, or you can spend a half hour with them, whatever it is. It's a
Hmm.
completely different way of looking at
Very cool.
accountability. So that's what we're doing in the group, and just launched on January 7th, and we have
Nice.
50 women. Uh,
So for our audience, how would they, I mean, it's a good time because we'll go on other topics. How would they explore if that's an option for them to be a part of that?
yeah, so we have a website that
Okay.
people can turn to. The website is thisiswhatshesaid.com,
Got it.
and the you can read through it. You can see what the offer is, and you can see what the pricing is, and all the stuff that we do. I've only,
Okay.
explained a fraction of what we do,
Well, sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
but that explaining the main premise of the group.
Hmm.
And we do a lot, and we do a lot together. We do a lot for each other. And it's growing. We just launched January 7th, and we have 50 women.
Nice.
Nice.
And nobody joins without going through me. And if I feel an energy that is not compatible, I don't invite people to join.
That's awesome.
So it's not like an interview process, but it's just a getting to know you and seeing whether it makes sense for you and me and you and the
Yeah,
group,
if it fits,
right?
right? Yeah.
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 And I generally, by the time people get to me, um, I can either, first of all, I can tell pretty quickly if this is not going to be the right thing. And
Hmm.
second of all, generally I meet pretty amazing women. And so one thing I can vouch for is that every single person that's in the group, as a human being, the essence of the human being is profound.
Nice.
So I have a lot of respect for the women that are in the group.
Hmm.
So that's a big
Right.
thing.
Nice.
Then the other thing that happened after this is, and I actually want to say this out loud because I was not like this. I actually became open to receiving things. I wasn't good with taking
Uh,
compliments.
Very nice.
Wasn't good at receiving good things happen
Hmm.
to me as openly as I am. And so I ended up getting the opportunity to be on the NASDAQ billboard in Times Square. So I did that. One of my
Wow.
books is going to be it has been invited to the Oscars gifting lounge. So we're going to
Very
do that.
cool. Hmm.
Because I told you I was working on 5 books. Well, now it's 10. And
Wow.
the next one will hopefully be launching very shortly. It's called Might, Might. So it's a double entendre for might as in power, the power to solve the impossible, or might as in how might we solve this, so possibility.
Nice. I
Where do you
like
go
that.
when nothing seems to work or you don't know where to begin? So that's what the book is about. Um,
When, because I think that'd be a interview topic in and of itself, because I like
Yeah.
that
yeah,
concept.
yeah.
When do you see that happening and for that book launch to happen? Because we can set that up as well.
Yeah, so the book launch, I'm in the final edits. I was hoping to have
Okay.
it done already, but I
Okay.
don't, because as I started it in 2021, and a lot has
Mm.
happened since then, and my eyes have been open to a lot of things. So it's happening. It's happening this month. We'll start the pre-sale at least this
Oh,
month.
cool.
Mhm.
Cool.
Are you self-publishing that?
I am publishing it with a gentleman who's a friend of mine who has a publishing company. So I am going with a publisher, but a very, very small boutique. Um,
Mhm.
and I think he's pretty terrific. So
Nice.
I'm doing that with him. And then I'm going to be in a documentary. I'm going to be on the covers, digital covers of Rolling Stone and Forbes. There's just been so many things that have been happening, and I can't even keep track. I've been on a ton. Well, not a ton. I've been on several podcasts. It's getting to be a ton, but several
Mm.
podcasts. But here's a really cool thing. Um, one of the podcasts that I was on, um, the host asked me if I would like to speak in Iceland. And so next week, I'm going to Iceland for a
Wow.
couple of weeks, and part of that is the journey to be able to speak. And I'm
Mhm.
speaking actually. The topic is really cool. It's about how the absurd can lead to profound ideas and catapult your growth.
Nice.
But it's all about the absurd.
Mhm.
So, and there's a lot of things that about Iceland that are kind of absurd. Like they have a friggin' volcano that goes off every now and then, but they've
Yeah,
turned it
I
into
know.
you could be, and we're going to be staying on top of it. You could be like totally petrified of that, but what they did is they turned it into a tourist attraction.
Hmm.
You know, the Arctic tern is a bird that is the only bird known to fly from, pole to pole every year, and it's an Icelandic bird. Like, I mean, it's like there's just crazy things like that, the kind of museums that they have. I'm sure I don't know if you've heard of it,
Hmm.
but they've got very interesting museums. They've got, stuff that they do with lava ash. Like they've got, I mean, it's just profound. Like the whole Viking idea, like it's just so cool. Like I want to eat like a Viking one day, Like, just to see what it's like. Um,
Sure you want that or
yeah,
not?
no, I know it's not. I don't think I really want that
That's
'cause,
that's pretty much most of my heritage, and
yeah.
you just want to
Um,
ask questions first.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, I'm not like into shoveling stuff. I don't know. That's the impression that I want to eat everything kind of thing. So I'm not about that life. But like things like that come out of this too.
That's awesome.
I'm going to be trained by some really great people in terms of how to grow my business. But I don't know, I just feel like I am like limitless. I've just been unleashed,
You know,
unshackled.
it reminds me, your story so far reminds me of people who have had near-death experiences where they come out of that just like free. Just
Yeah,
there's just nothing has bound me anymore. It's like
yeah,
I was raised and conditioned and chained and roped and tied and taped and and such, and all of a sudden it's
yeah,
just like, kind of F all of you. I'm
yeah,
doing what is me. And
yeah,
and that's where these people they come from these experiences like yourself, and they're just like, yeah, I am limitless.
yeah. And
And so
there's something so freeing about it these days.
Mhm.
And I don't really live in fear of anything. The other thing is that I'll tell you a couple of things. First of all, I have three words that I live by. One is curiosity, one is deliberateness, and the other is wit.
Beautiful.
So to me, curiosity drives everything. I actually built a success model on it that is self-perpetuating and everlasting. And if you follow it, if you believe in it, and if you practice it, unlimited success.
Mhm.
And
Hmm.
it's funny because when I was interviewed for that first book that became a Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller, it's on success mindsets. And they said, "So what was that big turning point in your life that completely changed you and made you the success that you are today?" And I'm thinking like, I didn't think of myself as, the success that I am today kind of thing. But first of all, I'm listening and I was like, yeah, I got nothing. Like, like there's no turning point because it's life is about all these little pieces that are, strung together, right? And
Yeah.
and so to me when you said like what's that one moment, then everybody's going to be chasing that one moment, and guess what? That one moment never exists, so you'll never be happy, you know?
Yeah, and I see it as the
Instead,
other way. It's happening all the time. It's just whether you're aware of it or not, right?
that's right. That's
That's the way
exactly
I
right.
see it. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but you can actually impact how it happens. You can a lot of it has to do with neuroplasticity, believe it or not. But the at
Hmm.
least the cycle that I've developed, and so you actually can control what you're
Yeah.
what you're facing,
Mhm.
or you have say in it. Let's put it that way. But I really believe that curiosity drives everything. And you know what? The really cool thing is I completely embraced this notion of curiosity, like suspending myself in a state of curiosity all the time. Because guess
Nice.
what? Then you have no expectations, so you're never disappointed. Guess what? You never get angry. Because if you and I are fighting, or we're on opposite ends of the spectrum, I can say to you, you know what, curious. I'm really curious. Tell me how you got there, because I totally didn't see it that way. But I really
Hmm.
want to hear your side, or I really
Yeah.
want to hear your story, whatever it is. So that's a big one.
Mhm.
Deliberateness was really big. People talk about living on living a life of purpose. What the hell is that?
Mhm.
What does that mean? To me, it means like I just feel like being deliberate is such a more clear word because it's a choice, as is curiosity for that matter. It is you have control over it. Um, it's 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 an action word, and I love action words. Curiosity is
Mhm.
an action word. It's a strategic word. It's a non-judgmental word. Like there's so many things. And wit because I laugh a lot and I want to laugh more. And I think, the endorphins that it releases and helps your health is such a big thing.
Mhm.
And I
Oh
love
yeah.
witty humor. And not just, gaggy humor. Like I'm not really big on that, but really smart witty humor, like especially like British humor, I can say. Um, but the other thing I was going to say when you were talking earlier, Ron, is that um boy, I feel like I've been talking a lot. Sorry about that.
No, you're
Okay, that's
good.
what an interview is
That's
about.
what it's all about.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm like, okay, somebody stop her. Um, but um, but I often get asked if I believe everything happens for a reason,
Hmm.
and I don't. But what I do believe is that whatever does happen, make sure it has a purpose, because otherwise it would have happened in vain, and that would be tragic.
Hmm.
So to me, I have no, there's a lot of atrocities going on in the world. If my child dies, give that death, give that life, give it a purpose, because otherwise,
Yeah, and I think a way that I like to say is because I kind of agree with you in a lot of ways in that, and saying that everything happens. Whether you give it meaning or not is up to you.
yeah, yeah,
So
Exactly.
yeah,
whether it has a reason is completely up to you. Everything happens, and that's everything. It's everything everywhere all the time type of movie thing is it's
yeah,
always happening
yeah,
everywhere all the time,
yeah.
and it's whether you attach meaning to it that gives it value to you and your life or your experience or
And
not.
that's so smart because there's things that, I tell my kids this all the time. Don't give it more value than it's worth
Yep.
because you can stew and get upset over all kinds of things, but it's not worth it. So to
Hmm.
your point, you know, how much meaning are you going to give it?
Yep. Yep.
So
Right.
that's a really good
Exactly.
point. Really good point.
Yeah. And then meaning you give it becomes kind of a control feature. And
Yeah,
a
it
lot of
puts a box
Yes,
around it, and then
yes,
it limits it, and
yes.
then there's
exactly.
judgment, and then there's all these
Yeah,
other things
yeah,
that
yeah,
come to
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. No, that's a really
Right.
good
Mhm.
point too, Ross. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and we always say, at least I always say, life is about making choices and making connections. That's it.
Yep.
That's all it is.
That's all it
Yeah.
is.
It's
Really
that
is.
simple.
It's very simple. And we talk about Gary and I talk about it all the time with our students and things that where they it's like you're like, well, that was it. And they're like, no, there has to be more. I'm like, no, it's really that simple.
Yeah,
You've just been conditioned to expect it to be
yeah,
complicated, and
that's
it
right.
doesn't need to be complicated. And when you can see that, and when you can look at everything from that 30,000 foot view, I mean, it's incredibly simple. But you get
Yeah, because
down here
society has conditioned us to think complexity means value, right?
That's right.
correct.
And that's
Mhm.
so not it, right?
It's actually quite the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah.
Simplicity is what has
Hmm.
value.
Hmm.
Yep.
It
Because
is.
if you can turn a complex thing into something that's very simple, boy, that's a big thing. That's a big win.
Yep. Yep.
So that's the way I think of it anyway.
Yeah. That's
Um, it's funny, I do a lot of posts on LinkedIn. It's my medium of choice just because I
Hmm.
learn a lot and it's business growth and it's just where I live more so than any other place.
Yep.
And one of the posts that I did was this I was thinking about what happens when we grow up. We get more stupid and stuff, all of that, right? But because we stop looking at things like a child. But I was also talking about the other side, which I just find is so profound. Like when we are, so my mom was an OBGYN, and when we are in the womb, one of the things when our digits start to develop is we learn to grasp. And when we come out for about the first 6 months, a reflex is to grasp. That's
hmm
that's our reflex. But that's true of life in general. It's when
Mm.
as you mature and get older, you learn to let go, right?
Mhm.
Isn't that so
Well,
amazing? Like it's
sometimes.
just so profound because it's
Nice.
the story of life, really.
Yeah.
So in with you had said something as we get older, we get dumber and earlier too, and it kind of struck me because I'm like, it's very true. But at the same time, do you feel that it's not so much that we get dumber as that we just seem to play it safe more because now we have something to lose? It's like when people get successful, all of a sudden they're not taking those risks because they're like, no, I just built all of this up. I don't want to lose it. As to
Mhm.
where, it's kind of like the Rocky saga. It's like in the beginning, he's just like he just went all in because he had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
But then he starts getting more popular and then starts playing it safer.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. The way I look at it is that as we get more knowledge,
Hmm.
it starts to put up it starts to shackle us in some way
Right.
because it starts to put up barriers and
Overthinking, you mean?
guardrails
Hmm.
on things that we can and can't do because we fall into the trap of, hey, this is the way it's always been done, or this is
We attach truth to that knowledge. That's why. It's because we attach truth to that
that's right,
knowledge instead.
totally right.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
then it limits, and there's nothing else that's a possibility because this is the truth, right?
yeah. So
Yeah.
so my what I try to do when I talk about teaching about solving the impossible is
Hmm.
exactly that, is how to create options for yourself that you never thought you had, that you
Hmm.
never thought you had,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah.
So so it's so much of it, so much of this is mind work
Yeah.
that
It's what we call infinity thinking. So infinity thinking
love it.
is,
Love it.
and you can, so for many years, I always had um, hesitation around this concept of, when people say, well, I've got this glass, has some water in it, is it half full or half empty?
Right.
And there's half the audience is going to say half full, half is going to say half empty. And so infinity thinking, right? Infinity thinking is, it's always full, just two different substances. In fact, it's overflowing all the time.
Absolutely love that. Totally love
And
it.
depending on what you need for the circumstance or situation that you're in, you can then say, if I'm in a desert, half full is way better than half empty. And
Yeah.
if you if you're submerged in water and you need air, then half empty is better than half full. So it's
Yeah.
depending on circumstance as far as what serves you, but it's always all there.
Yeah. I love that. Totally love that.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. It's just depends on what it's full of.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
depends on where your focus goes based on what you need in the moment.
And I love getting people to think like that. To me,
Hmm.
um, and I've thought about this a lot for many years, is what do I really consider intelligence? And first of all, if you want to look at it scientifically, there's really only two types of intelligence. And people think it's IQ and EQ. It's like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
not that. It's something that was sort of discovered, shall we say, in the 1960s. And it's really about fluid and crystallized. Fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. So
Nice. I like that.
fluid, the best
Yeah.
way I can describe it is fluid is what you're born with.
Mm.
It's your innate abilities and your innate level to do certain things or level up on things. And that sort of develops until you're about 20, 21 years of age. And then after that, it's all crystallized intelligence. Is what have you crystallized from the experiences that you've had and the
Yeah.
fluid knowledge that you have that makes something greater. And
Hmm.
so every person should feel pretty damn good about realizing that it's all about fluid and crystallized. That's all it's about. So there is like kids should feel amazing. Every child, whatever they're capable of, should feel amazing. Every human should. So to me that when I read about it and it's like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Why are we
Mhm.
putting labels on stuff? You know, it makes no
Hmm.
difference in the world. And And the way I look at intelligence is those folks who can get me to think of the same thing very differently is what I think intelligence is. So like your, story about the cup, right? It's just
Yeah.
what you put in it and what's in it
Yeah.
and how you think of it that way.
Hmm.
So to me, that's brilliance,
Hmm.
you know, because we've been taught so many things that are so restrictive. And that's getting back to it makes us dumber because it's like, what, we can't think for ourselves anymore, you know?
Yeah, it's these. There's so many different things. I think we could really jam on this, but I think even the things that we buy into as everyday things that we accept that are not really true, but we accept we like, and I catch people on this all the time. They're like, when the sun comes up tomorrow, I'm like, hold on, the sun does not move. You know that, right? We rotate. So the sun ain't coming up and it ain't going down.
That's
It's
right.
when the earth revolves back to see the sun again that you notice it. That's what happens. But
Yeah,
we buy into this concept of what we see as reality when it's not,
totally agree.
right?
Totally
And
agree.
there's all kinds of things like that that I catch people on all the time. And I'm like, hold on, let's check that out for a second.
Yeah.
You
It's so true. I mean, I just think that there's no reason for us to live so restricted.
hmm
And I have to tell you, like by the time so I went to Duke, which was my 15th school. By the way, I love March Madness.
Blue Devils.
Yeah, yeah. But I have to tell you, I'm a terrible loser.
Oh yeah.
So if they
Out of
lose,
it.
you can't talk to me. Like you cannot talk to
Well,
me.
well, we timed this interview just right.
Yeah, we
Just
certainly did.
perfectly. Yeah. Well,
Um,
I think they have a interesting opponent on Friday, but I think, or so Saturday, it's going to be for Alabama. It's going to be an interesting
it's gonna be
game. So
but
we'll
they're all
see.
like that. Like they're all really
Oh,
good
I know.
competitors,
I know.
right?
Yeah.
Like they're
Last
all
night's games were just bonkers. I
yeah, yeah.
know.
And um anyway, I love that whole thing. And I mean, I was there when we camped out for games and when
Oh, wow. That's
it was
awesome.
amazing. But but what I was gonna say, what was I gonna say? Oh, it was my 15th school, and one of the things was sometimes we moved every 6 months, moved to different countries, moved to different states and cities and
Mm.
you know, um um continents. And people think like, oh man, that must have been so hard. Well, when you're a kid, nothing seems hard, really. Like it's just you just go
Yeah.
along, go with the flow.
Unless you're told it's supposed to be or it's going to be.
That's
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. Yeah.
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 So, mom and dad, okay, we're picking up. Okay, let's go.
Hmm.
Like, okay,
Yeah.
we're only going to be here for 6 months. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
But it makes you tremendously adaptable.
Hmm.
Like, so you learn that skill so well. And
Yeah.
Right.
that way, when you
Hmm.
learn new information or get new information, you become so much more fluid. And
Here's the other thing I find that does too on, and because I've had a similar background where all over the place as well. What I found for me was um, I I was never told either the good or the bad of it. It's you're good that you're moving it, but we're going, and you had to
yeah,
accept it. There was no no
yeah,
conversation
Exactly.
like there is nowadays.
yeah,
It was just,
yeah.
what do you
I,
mean I'm in a new school
Yeah.
tomorrow? Is it like
Yeah.
it's
Or like my parents would always say, you don't have to justify it to the kids. They
yeah,
just have to do
exactly,
it.
right? It's just you
You know?
just so what I found with that experience of the moving and going, it's um was different from how when I talk to some people, they're like you said, that seems so unstable, seems so but to me, it was just like I adapted in a way that for me, it doesn't matter where I am. Home is with me. It's not location based. So
Yes.
you could drop me anywhere and I'm okay.
Yeah,
I
me
don't
too.
have to have a specific place to call a quote unquote home to feel okay and be okay with who I am and exist with the people around me in the environment. I make it work. And but I know some people they're like oh no, this is doing that many moves or shuffling your kids around in this way. It's not good for them. It's not good for their
I
development. I'm
think it's
like,
the
who
opposite.
says? Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
are you is your glass half full, half empty type? It's just it comes up to that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. You were talking about how we just accept things because that's what we've been told.
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
And I will never forget this. Now, this is what I remember. Doesn't mean it's 100% accurate, but I
Hmm.
remember being in eighth grade in my middle school and in civics class, and we were learning the qualifications to become president of the United States. And I remember thinking, okay, so this is what I remember. You had to be white, you had to be male, you
Wow.
had to be above 35, and you could not be a naturalized citizen. You had to be like born a US citizen.
Mm.
Right.
And so and I remember thinking, I wonder why. I wonder why you have to be 35. I wonder why you have to be white. And I remember thinking, oh, that's really strange. But okay, because somebody told me it was supposed to be
Just
okay.
get accepted. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and and so it's like these paradigms that, we've been conditioned to believe that just are not,
Right.
we don't question enough, and that's frustrating, I find.
Hmm.
I wish we
Yeah.
did more of
Yeah.
that.
But do you feel though that the educational system though is designed that way, not to question?
Totally. Totally, because
You're punished if you question.
If you question too much, for sure.
you
Yeah.
question too much.
Mhm.
But
Or if you question outside of their parameters of what they're willing to deliver. Yeah.
yeah, I think about the educational system a lot, and I also
Hmm.
feel like um it is so not meant about learning. It is really about, it's just so rigid. It's there's some people who don't function well in the morning. There's
Hmm.
some people
Yeah.
who, don't know anything about money management. There's some people who, they don't learn the same way. I know I have kids that are
Right.
like, you know,
Sure.
as an example, but we're all trying to make it fit, you know, and there's no reason we have to fit. Like, you can be compatible
Hmm.
without having to fit. You can
Yep.
become
Hmm.
very diverse, and that's a great thing. Like, I mean, I look at the group of women that we have. You wouldn't believe, like, there's somebody that was a motorcycle rider, there's somebody that's a saxophone, player,
Hmm.
there's somebody that works in construction, like,
Hmm.
then there's a doctor, and there's a lawyer, and there's an engineer, and there's, whatever. Like, there's all like a huge spectrum, but what they create together is pretty amazing. And it's still, we're new.
Hmm.
So, we're still in creation mode of the kind of group that we're creating the group as we go. Um,
Yeah.
I have some base ideas, but it's been pretty fascinating. I just don't
But
think,
even with that group of 50, though, somehow they have all found a common thread
yeah,
that binds them together.
yeah. And you know
Yeah.
what I think it is? I think um um how do I say this? I think we're survivors.
Okay.
Mm.
And people always think survivor, that means, like, you've gone through something really tragic, or you've gone through a coma, or you've gone through, abuse, or, whatever it is.
Hmm.
It's like, no, survivorship is not about, just the negative side. There's a huge positive side to it. So you could have been, you created this amazing business and you exited the business. And now you're like, now what to do? But
What's
I'm going to
next?
find
Yeah.
out, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, or you could be in a situation where, I figured out how to be a stay-at-home mom and raise my kids and
Mhm.
homeschool them, and still have a side hustle that I really love doing, so I can balance it all.
Right.
Hmm.
Figure things out. You get
Yeah.
it, you get it to a place that works for you. And I think this notion of survivorship is a big one, but it's not I haven't quite figured out the right term for it yet, but but I think
Mm.
that's what our common thread is. And we're just really good people. Like, just not a single person in there is questionable of in any way whatsoever.
That's awesome.
That's
Um,
awesome. Hmm.
yeah, it's been really good. Um, but I have to tell you, I love being on talks like this and love chatting. I mean, I can talk for a long time about a lot of things. And knowing what you're about also, I know we could talk for a long time.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
so when the first book launches, we'll definitely have to get back together again.
Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, for sure.
And I just want to say that if there is ever an opportunity for me personally, um, I want to get in front of more people. I definitely want to speak on more stages, and I do want to write more books. I love doing that, and
Mhm.
I love having smart conversations with people, not just the social side. I can be very social and be very funny. I was actually
Sure.
asked if I would consider doing stand up 3 times
There you go.
after one of my talks, and by comedians, by stand up guys.
That's
So
hilarious.
there must be something there, but it's like then I think
Yeah.
about like, nah, you know what? I'm just really not that funny. So so
It's in the natural delivery that it comes across, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not the
Yeah, not
canned
the
one. It's
canned one.
harder. I
Yeah,
think it would be harder
You
to
know,
do that.
some of my favorite comics that I listen to, I'll listen to them doing like a podcast where they're, just having a nice conversation, and
yeah,
they're just absolutely brilliant people.
Yeah.
yeah.
Just
I mean,
sharp.
just brilliant. You're just like you never would have thought.
You know
And
what? Can you share some of those with me? Like, not
like Jimmy Carr is so funny.
okay.
And I saw him on, I think Chris Williamson was interviewing him. I think it was Chris Williamson. And I mean, the things that he said, I'm just like, it was so counter to his stuff on stage. But then I started thinking about him, like, no, actually, that's what makes him so funny because he's, he's not about, being, cussing and doing all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff just to kind of stand out. It's just like his work is just brilliant because you can identify with it.
yeah. I
So
love that.
he can just, I mean, he must read the newspaper every single day and he's just picking these things out. He's like, well, I think he's very curious. He's like,
Yeah,
that's just kind of odd. I'm going to look into that a little bit
yeah.
more.
It's
You
like
know,
I
I
say,
mean, and that goes back to the times of George Carlin.
yeah,
Mhm.
Seriously, I mean, you listen to, I listen to him now. I'm like, I mean, I thought he was funny back then, but I'm just like, wow, he's he was really way beyond his
brilliant. I
time.
mean, you even look at some of the shows that were so brilliant, that were comical, but they were so poignant, like
Hmm.
All in the Family. Like they tackled subject matter that you would never have expected to do
Hmm.
publicly, you know?
Hmm.
It was like those are like the really amazing
And
shows.
wouldn't be allowed in today's society.
And I feel like we've kind of gotten into this world where we're just living in restrictions all the time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't, condemn somebody who did something in the 1980s according to the standards of today.
Right.
Like, I hate it when we do that. Like, that's just so
Yeah.
unfair. But getting back to your comic thing, I just remember hearing somebody say, you know, you have this chicken, you have this, this bird that
Hmm.
lays a big white ball coming out of its butt, and then somebody thought we should eat it.
Yeah, right.
Like, who was that brilliant
Yum.
person? Yeah.
That's
Like, and I thought, like, oh my God, that's so smart. Like, who was that?
I'm I am still on the coffee that the cat eats the beans and
Oh, the
then
cat's ass coffee.
yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
still there. I'm just like, who thought, hey, let's try this.
yeah. Okay, so I have a
It's gonna
confession.
work better.
I've actually tried it,
Oh
but
no.
I tried like a sip of it because I was like, I just have to say I tried it. I don't know. It was like, I'm not a coffee or tea drinker really.
Mhm.
So to me, it's like everything tastes the same. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Mm.
it doesn't taste like anything really different or special.
I had first heard of that on that movie, The Bucket List, with Morgan
Yeah.
Freeman and
Mm.
Jack Nicholson, and that was just kind of the closing joke for the entire movie. And it's and because this guy was always bragging about drinking this coffee. This coffee is $2,000 a pound or something like that. And at the very end, he knew nothing about how the coffee was made. At the very
Yeah.
end, Morgan Freeman tells him how this coffee is made, and it's just it. And probably 99% of the audience watching this show is going, no.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
it was brilliant. It was just,
So it's just,
uh,
and when I write, I also write a lot about people who have influenced um great great things in history too. I
yeah,
think you guys would really like the book. I'll share it with you
Yeah, for
once
sure.
it's ready to go.
love
It's
it.
coming up.
That
But
would be
sorry,
awesome.
Ross, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I think, you're asking me about comics. So, I mean, Joe Rogan's another one.
Yeah.
I mean, his stage performance is brilliant, but
Yeah.
he is an incredibly intelligent man.
Yeah.
very well rounded as well. So he's another
Yeah.
one, and he has a
Yeah.
lot of comics that are on his show. I don't watch all those episodes, but I mean, there's just a very special type of intelligence that makes a very, very
Yes.
good comic,
I actually think you have to be super intelligent to be a comic, to be
a
honest.
good
So
comic.
yeah, yeah,
A
absolutely.
good comic,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
it's not just people who think they're comics. It's actually people who
Yeah.
are actually funny, you know,
Mhm.
because they just see things in a very different way. And once again, how do I define intelligence? People
Yeah,
who,
well, I think there's conscious comedy and there's funny stuff that people say. I think there's a difference, and the conscious comedy comes across with layers of stuff hidden in a joke, right?
yes,
Mhm.
Yeah,
yes. Um, there's a couple of funny moments in the book too. I'm not going to tell you anything more about it, but I
right.
mean,
Okay.
I am so excited about it, and I can't wait to share it with you. So,
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
yeah,
We
yeah,
will look forward to that for sure.
yeah.
That's great. Okay,
All
so
right.
yeah, I think we're wrapping up on the hour here. We definitely have to get back on that. There's a lot of different things that I think that we could have kind of spiraled off on. What I did find interesting was, when you interviewed all those women and what you came up with, the brutal honesty and kindness at the same time, the wanting visibility, and also the airtight sisterhood. I would venture to guess, because when you said that, I'm like, oh, okay, well, okay, I could see that. I would venture to guess if you were to interview men, conscious men, right? Not just egotistical, I want to rule the world type of people, but you're going to find the same thing. We also want brutal honesty with kindness. We also want visibility of when we're present, that we're seen and respected and on. It's the same thing, right? And we would also like to have an airtight brotherhood of guys that we can say anything to and know that it's not going to come back to us, um, or the judgment component, like to have that as well. So I mean, you definitely hit on some core things there for sure. I don't think it's just for women. I think it's universal for conscious people that are in the realm of evolution as opposed to just a realm of attainment, right?
I think I'm so glad you said that because about the evolution piece and about
Mm-hmm.
this piece. So I believe that we're always evolving, and it's people
Mhm.
say, so when I retired, I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
I
When you
can't
say,
imagine.
I'm like, like, what does that mean? Like playing golf? Like
Yeah.
that's not what I want to do, or doing a bunch of volunteer work, or like it's almost
Yeah.
like we become, we're not useless to society once we hit
Yeah.
a certain age, right? So
Mhm.
we're evolving intellectually and
Mm-hmm.
um I can't think of the word. Anyway, we're constantly evolving. And like that's how we grow and contribute to growth. Like, when they interviewed me for that book on success mindsets, and they were talking about success and that, success that you have achieved. And I thought to
Mm-hmm.
myself, man, I would hate to think that I have arrived. You know,
Right?
Right.
how
Yeah,
depressing is that?
exactly.
That's so depressing.
Mhm.
And
Well,
I'm
but
like,
but that goes with the 5-year timer that happens after people retire.
yeah,
Is that
yeah,
they no longer have anything to work towards except maybe their golf swing, and they just lose their momentum. They lose their spirit. They lose their drive. Their will.
yeah.
And I
There
was
was a
just having this
study.
conversation with somebody. I was like, no, I've never, from day one, I have never ever thought of the idea that I would not be striving forward, that I would just
Yeah,
go and just learn to sit in a chair,
yeah.
you know, and
But
and watch
But
the
you have to start with people who are open-minded, right?
right.
Who are open to receiving, who are open to learning, who are open to being, you know, like whose minds are open to thinking about things very differently, if
Yeah.
But
given the
I
opportunity or the ideas.
and sometimes you have to give them permission.
Yeah.
Listen, I know this is the way that you've seen your dad and your grandfather and your great grandfather
Oh, I love that.
retire
Yeah.
and fade
Permission.
away. I'm giving you permission
Yeah.
to just go and go until you just drop,
Yeah.
because you don't have to play that role. because they're playing a role. Well, I'm this old. I have to retire now.
Yeah.
No, you don't. You might have to, your job or your profession might say, I'm sorry, you can't be a firefighter anymore because you can't lift up the hose. Great. But you can be a consultant, you can be this, you can be this, you can be this. It can continue. As Gary and I say, it's not this or that, it's this and that and that and that and that and that and that. You have the ability, and I am
Yeah.
going to give you the permission to
You
do
know,
this.
the way that when I went through my experience, the one thing that I do think about a lot is the fact that, hundreds of hands touched me to keep me alive.
Mhm.
Mm,
And you better be damn sure I'm going to live my life in a way that
That's
honors
awesome.
whatever you
honors
did.
those.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
Because if I'm here, my work is not done. And when
Hmm.
it is done, I will be released. It's as
Yeah.
simple as that.
Bravo.
So,
Wow, that's a good finish for an episode. That's really good.
Hmm. That's
Damn, you're
awesome.
good.
uh, I hope
All
you guys had a
right.
good time talking to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It was amazing.
We did.
I'm
So
sure
one
It
you
went
last
by so
time,
quick.
let everybody know how they can find you again.
So the best place to reach me is on LinkedIn,
Okay.
first and last name on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
My company is Active Ingredients Inc., and that's my umbrella company, and what she said is a part of that. Um, I um, I very much want to um, grow people. Very much want to build people up
Mm.
in any way that I can. Um, and that doesn't mean that I want to put a bunch of stuff out there.
Right.
And it's not like, build a kingdom and they will come. It's not about that for me. For me, it's about, I learn so much from other people. Like I learned so much today, from what both of you were saying. But it's really about this beautiful evolution that we have and that never stops. Um, and then when we're gone, I was talking to my dad about this. When we're gone, my mother passed away and he was feeling really, really sad. And they were very close, very, very close. Like they went to school together and like, they've grown up together. They went on
Wow.
adventures together. Like it was a big deal.
Awesome.
And he feels sad a lot. And I tell him, Dad, because I'm not the crying person. When I cry because I'm sad. But if I
Yeah.
really think about my mom, it's like, man, this is what she wanted. She wanted to be released. She was ready. And I'm so happy for her,
Hmm.
So I just think of things very differently that way. But I was telling my
Sure.
dad, Dad, if if you really feel that bad, just remember, we're all gonna die. Like,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
he starts laughing and I start laughing. It's like this comedian once said, if you're really upset at someone, which you don't really need to be, but if you are, just remember 200 years from now, all new people.
Not to worry about it. There you go.
Yeah. So it's like,
Yeah.
you don't have to feel upset. You don't have to feel
Yeah.
sad.
That's good.
Yeah. I often remind people, hey, this human thing is a temporary gig.
Get
Get used
is.
to it. It's
It
Mhm.
so
it's
is.
a temporary gig,
It
and you don't
so
know
is.
when it's time to check out. It's time to check out. It's time to check out. So
Yes,
do what you can while you're here. Yeah.
exactly.
Exactly.
And that's all I want to try to do. I just want to, as much as I can do that.
Yeah.
That's where I want to be.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for showing up, being here, and sharing your story. An amazing story. I think our audience will really love it. And yeah, we look forward to having you on again.
All right. Thanks so much,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
You're welcome. Be
See you.
well.
Bye bye.